Triangle to Win is on Patreon. Follow the link you see on the screen to find out how to support the show. This is Triangle to Win, a gaming podcast with a focus on all things PlayStation and RPGs. A veritable match made in heaven, the aforementioned combo has given us historic games such as Final Fantasy VII and Kingdom Hearts, my personal favorite. And I'm your host, Karlobster, and it's time to press Triangle to Win. So hello everybody. It's been a while. It is I, Karlobster, and I'm sorry for me recording this a little bit later than expected. It's because I am currently in Japan. Is that cool? I've been in Japan here for around the past week so far, and it's mostly for work purposes, but I've been having fun here as much as I can. Been hanging out with some workmates and also exploring a little bit as much as I can during the evenings. Unfortunately, every day I go home at like around 10 p.m. 10 p.m. to midnight, but that doesn't stop me from at least getting to like, you know, the combines and the local grocery like near me to buy some stuff. But it's been an adventure. I've been to Japan once before, but my stay in Japan before was even shorter, around like 6 days. And also, it was mostly for work again. And now I'm back here, which is also still mostly for work. But I think I have maybe a week where I have nothing going on at some point. Like maybe a week before I fly back is just free time for me, which I specifically like allotted. You know, just so I can at least see something aside from the Konbinis, the 7-Elevens, the Lawsons, the Family Marts of Japan. So I'm excited for that. It's not anytime soon. But yeah, for now it's mostly work. And actually, there was one leisurely thing, aside from eating, of course. For eating, in terms of food, I have eaten, just today, I ate sushi, a conveyor belt sushi, and it was really good. My problem with the prices here is that just looking at the prices, right? And, you know, the people I was with were saying, oh yeah, this sushi place is known for being cheap. It's not really known for quality. It's known mostly for being cheap and for quantity, basically. But looking at the prices, they say, yeah, that's cheap. And however, what I do is I always convert like the Japanese yen to Philippine peso. And I always come up with an amount that is very expensive. More expensive than I would have been comfortable with if I was in the Philippines in a conveyor belt sushi place in the Philippines. Though, to be fair, conveyor belt sushi place in the Philippines is probably going to be expensive too. But still, right? When I convert it, just raw absolute numbers, everything here is much more expensive than in the Philippines. I wonder if there is anything that I can consider cheaper. Oh, actually, there is Heat Tech. The Uniqlo Heat Tech that I got is actually cheaper here than in the Philippines, which is interesting. Now that I think about it, are clothes cheaper here than in the Philippines? I wouldn't know. Maybe. At least for the Heat Tech it is. So that's interesting. But yeah, so food. So far, I've had sushi, conveyor belt sushi. I've had ramen on 2 occasions. For the first type of ramen, it was, what did I get? It was some kind of pork or beef. I don't know what it was. It was some maybe pork ramen thing. I didn't really read the translation. I didn't really Google translate it. I just saw the price and I was like, yeah, let me get the ramen. Then the other type of ramen that I had was much more interesting. It was this ramen place that, instead of the typical ramen that you get, which is meat, right? It was full mostly of seafood. And the type of ramen I got was the mackerel ramen. Whereas my friends and coworkers got, you know, horse mackerel, they got salmon ramen, they got And there was a bunch of other options that I'm not sure if they're good enough. But I do want to go back there. It's very interesting. So I had ramen on 2 occasions. I had yakiniku. Yakiniku was pretty good. It was very fun. And the meat was really high quality and very delicious, of course. Then I also had yakitori. Yakitori, which is, I think, it's just skewered like meats and stuff like that. So I had that. Honestly, I'm pretty surprised listing them out right now that I have had different types of food here in Japan. Because honestly, the only thing that I have been brave about when it comes to buying food and, going to stores and talking to cashiers is konbini, because it's so easy to buy stuff from the konbini with very little Japanese knowledge. I cannot speak Japanese. I know very little Japanese, but the only Japanese I know is arigatou gozaimasu, which is thank you. Then yoroshiku onegai shimasu, which is something like please, I am in your care, or something like that, or take care of me, please. I am in your care. Then all the konbini stuff, which is fukuro. Fukuro, when you hear fukuro, it means bag. If you want your stuffed food to be bagged, put it in a plastic bag. Atatame, which basically means you need, if you want the food to be heated. And what else is there? That's it. Sumimasen, when you just want to say sorry, excuse me, or that kind of thing. Sumimasen, gomenasai, say sorry. Hi, to say yes. And that's it. And I've been kind of surviving as much as I can. But I haven't really gone on my own into like a restaurant or bakery or something similar where I just go in there, buy stuff, and get out of there alone. I've mostly been able to get to these more restaurant-y places when I was with coworkers. So, I know what to do. They'll tell me what to do when I need any type of instructions for the process and to buy things. Because here in Japan, every a restaurant has a different type of system going on. The ramen place specifically has like a little kiosk outside of the ramen place where you can choose what you want to buy. And that's a bit easier because you press the button. It's like a vending machine. You press the button and then you put some money or you tap your card and then the change comes out and the machine gives you a ticket. And when you go inside, you give the ticket to the people at the place and they get your order to you and that's it, right? But even then, there are different variations. For the smaller ramen shop that I went to, you give the ticket to like the waiter, the main waiter at the kitchen or something, then they prepare your order. However, for the other ramen place is when you get your ticket, you put it in front of your table and wait for one of the servers to get the ticket. And so it becomes a little bit weird sometimes, depending on the place you go to. Then, for example, a sushi place, the conveyor sushi place, was you went to a little kiosk first to get a ticket, to get your table, right? And then you sit at your table, and with a tablet, you order your food through the tablet, and then the food comes to you through the conveyor belt. And then after that, you take your ticket/receipt. Then you go to a kiosk at the entrance of the sushi place. You scan the barcode of the receipt you got, and then you pay. So there's a different system per restaurant, and it's a bit confusing if you don't know what you're doing. And especially if you've never been to that restaurant before, you can get blindsided easily. So that's the thing that I've been struggling with. Hopefully in the 5 days that I have free time, I'll be able to actually try some new things and it's not just be konbini over and over. Even though I like the konbini food here, it's really good. What I've also been doing is I've been going to the grocery to buy food to cook. So far, I bought some rice, a bunch of eggs, some noodles, right? Some noodles, maybe some fruits here and there, some breads. And what I've been doing is cooking the rice and then pouring boiling water on my noodles, my instant noodles. And then what I do is with the soup, I basically put the rice in the soup of the noodles and eat it with the rice. So eat these noodles with the soup, with the rice, and then add an egg. And it's really, really good. It's really good. So maybe tomorrow I'll have to go ahead to the grocery again and get some supplies because my supplies are definitely dwindling now. Also, I've been trying to think if I should get, like, salt. I'm not going to be here for long. I hope I can find, like, just a small amount of salt, a small amount of cooking oil, so I can cook some meat, probably. Or maybe just fry some eggs, stuff like that. Should be good. Then, aside from that, my biggest problem here in Japan is that there's so much walking, man. There's so much walking that I think I got a little sprain in my left foot. It's not really a sprain because nothing really traumatic happened to me. It's just, there's just a little pain in my left foot that is having a hard time to recover because I have no rest. I've been walking all around everywhere, and it doesn't help that the place I'm living in is around 20 minutes away from the nearest train station. So that's been a problem. Every time I would go to the train station, I have to walk for 20 minutes. And then after a long day at work, I go home and walk 20 minutes back home. And if I wanted to go to the grocery, that's like another 10-minute walk from near my home to the grocery. And it's a whole thing. But it's been fun, and I know that's actually healthy. And you know what? Maybe in a weird way, I am the healthiest here in Japan. Aside from maybe the stress of work, aside from maybe the tiredness, at least my body is getting some sort of exercise, like a lot of walking. And you know, and we all know that walking is necessary. If you're not able to do actual aerobic exercises or intense exercises, then walking is a good little thing that you should be doing for exercise. You know, even just a little is better than nothing. So, I guess I'm happy about that. It's just my legs are very painful. My calves are painful. And then I looked at my skin, the skin of my calves, like this morning, and it was kind of shiny. And, you know, when your skin is shiny, that can mean a few things. And in this case, I feel like it could be edema. Like there's water buildup around the skin or soft tissues of my calves because of all the walking. I need to set aside. You know, I need to sleep at night with my feet up is what I should do to combat that. But yes. And that's mostly, I'm not really going to talk too much about my Japan trip. Maybe I'll talk about it more in the next podcast once I have done doing some sightseeing, probably. Maybe go to Akihabara, find myself a copy of Dragon Guard 3, hopefully, and maybe some cool merch. Kingdom Hearts merch, if I ever see one. And we'll see how it goes. But for now, welcome to Triangle to Win, which is my bi-weekly podcast focused on PlayStation news and RPGs, amongst other things, and amongst other my other interests. And I have a Patreon up, and if you want to support the show, please go to patreon.com/triangle to win to know how. But aside from that, if you don't want to subscribe, there are 2 tiers to it. The first tier, the support tier, is $1 a month or $5 a month for early access to this podcast. Now, you get early access to the podcast like 3 days before it comes out to YouTube. In this case, it's 2 days because, you know, it's been a difficult few days to be able to schedule next to anything aside from, you know, my work here in Japan. But finally able to do it now. And I just ate, you know, some boiled eggs and rice today with some coffee, and I'm ready to get into our first few news segments, which we're going to start talking about now. So for PlayStation news and just news in general that I'm interested in, I have a feeling this will be sort of a short podcast, so to speak, just because my recording environment isn't really ideal and I'm in a weird place right now. It's not as comfortable and it's not my usual place that I do this. But we'll see how long it goes, how much we can discuss. Usually what I do is basically do my research about news on Friday, right? Then that's like Friday evenings. I check out all the news and all the things that I want to talk about and make a little document. And then I record on Sunday evening or Sunday afternoon, depends. And then I release the podcast on Tuesday for Patreon, then on Friday for YouTube. However, what happened because of my Japan trip is I got all these articles and got my doc done yesterday, and now I'm recording today. So there might be some weirdness. I apologize. This might be a weird episode just in general, but it won't always be like this. We'll go back to our regular podcast style. Even my equipment that I'm using right now is different from what I usually use, and my setup here is very different than my usual setup. So yeah, please bear with me, but we'll see. There's a bunch of interesting news, and actually this episode is when we're going to be talking about all the state of play stuff, which is going to come a little bit later. But for now, let's talk about these small PlayStation items that are interesting. First off is Alan Wake 2, according to Video Games Chronicle, has sold more than 2 million copies, and Remedy is now making royalties from it. And Control 2 has now also entered full production, Remedy says. So in a financial statement summarizing the company's results for the fourth quarter of 2024, Remedy says the game passed a 2 million milestone by the end of the year and are thus now making royalties on the game because they have now paid off development and marketing costs involved in its making. So this is a whole thing in the past few months since Alan Wake 2 was released, because Alan Wake in general, and Remedy games in general are known to be really good games, right? Alan Wake was released long ago on the Xbox 360. I think it was just the Xbox 360, yes. And it was a third-person shooter with a cool gameplay mechanic where you encounter... The whole premise is that Alan Wake is writing some sort of story, and whatever he writes kind of becomes true. And so the story is kind of more horror-styled and stuff like that. So it's very also poetic because Alan Wake is a writer. And the gameplay is... There's a lot of interplay between light and dark. So Alan Wake has a flashlight and a gun. And now whenever you counter these enemies, whatever they are, like spirits or whatever monsters that he encounters, you have to shine a spotlight first on the enemy with your flashlight to kind of weaken it or make it vulnerable to gunfire. So that's very interesting. And so aside from the flashlight that you have to weaken the enemies, you also get different types of equipment, like, for example, a flare that you open, as some sort of AoE light thing, so you can start shooting all the other enemies. And it gets very interesting, but the main interesting thing about Alan Wake, in my opinion, is mostly the story, the ambiance, and it's less about the gameplay for sure. But Alan Wake 2 has come along. I haven't played it yet, but it seems to be the same thing, where it has a cool, very weird, very avant-garde type of story. And one of the things as well is that it looks really good. And it's one of those really nice single-player games that are very high quality. However, the problem with Alan Wake 2, they also made Control, which is also another really weird but, very lauded single-player game. But the problem with Alan Wake 2 was, for a game that's really, really good, just in general, really good, they have been struggling to reach the point in sales that they can recoup their costs, that they break even. Yes. It's one of the things that we have been kind of like, what the hell is going on? Why? Please, what people buy the games that you want to support, right? Because if you don't, then you get these good games that are made by very talented people, but no one's buying it, even if it's really good. And so when the devs are unable to recoup their costs, unable to break even, and put that money, that profit, into a better next game, then that kind of sucks, right? It sucks that there's so much slop, for example, on Steam or PlayStation, the PlayStation page, that are just there, probably making a little bit of money, maybe made by AI, and you have this game that's really good and really high quality, but for some reason people aren't buying it, and it's a bit annoying. Or you have other games where, you know, they're not technically super good, but maybe they sell like millions and stuff like that. So there's a weird little injustice thing going on with games and it's selling. And Alan Wake 2 definitely deserves more sales, for sure, just based on, you know, the track record of Remedy and how good they are and talented as a development studio. It kind of sucks that it took so long for them to break even. Now, Alan Wake 2 has also other things going against it. For example, I think it didn't have a physical release. But also, in the same way, I don't think the physical release really was to blame. Maybe the fact that it's only on Epic Game Store. I think I remember something like that. That it's not on Steam, it's just on Epic Game Store. But yeah, there's a lot of things going against it that definitely hampered its sales. But still, you know, a good game deserves to break even at the very least, right? So it's good to know that Alan Wake 2 has now sold 2 million copies and they have now broken even and are now making profit, and now, which is great, which is good for them. Finally. Took a while, but finally. Now, Control 2 needs to have more mass appeal, because I don't know if it'll go the same way as Alan Wake 2. We definitely don't need another situation like this where a really good game is just not being bought and not breaking even, right? So, congratulations to Remedy and the sales for Alan Wake 2. It was a slow burn, but you still reached a break-even point, which is fine, but less than ideal. Okay? Then, next article is from Video Games Chronicle. PlayStation 5 enjoys the best ever holiday period, reaching 75 million shipments. The PS5 shipments are now neck and neck with the PS4. And now we have a solid number for how many PS5s have been shipped. Now, here's the thing. Shipped might be different from sold in a way. Shipped is a very specific terminology for, you know, PS5s that have reached stores. So PS5s that have reached stores doesn't necessarily mean these are PS5s that are in people's houses, but still, it's a good metric. Basically, the amount of PS5s they put in stores is kind of a reflection of the demand. If the demand is low, they would not be able to ship. They would not ship 75 million units. If the demand only, if the market only demands 20K PS5s, then they would have never reached 75 million. So the number for PS5 is roughly probably around maybe 65 to 70 something million. Who knows? But yeah. So in the company's financial results for the 3 months ended December 31, 2024, Sony reported shipments of 9.5 million PS5 consoles, the best quarter ever of the PS5 era, and only 0.2 million behind PlayStation 4's peak in Q3 in 2017. Now that's kind of crazy. PS5 has been on the market for a few years now, and we got a new peak just last year, selling almost 10 million units of PS5s during the holiday season. Launch aligned, PlayStation 5 is now just 1.5 million units behind the PlayStation 4 during the same period of its life cycle. And this is kind of interesting because the PS4 did not have COVID like interrupting supply lines, right? It was basically a very competitive console compared to the competition. It won basically its own generation. But it's interesting that PlayStation 5, given all of its problems at the beginning, awful supply because of the pandemic, right? Even lack of first-party games, so to speak, because a lot of people have been complaining about that, like lack of PlayStation Studios games, which is a well-known thing. They even said, like, in an announcement, in a press release, that last year there wasn't going to be a lot of first-party games, and just even the price of the PS5, right? It had a lot of things going against it compared to the PS4, but it's still catching up to it. It's 1.5 million units behind the PS4, which I think the PS4 generation was a really good generation for PlayStation. It was very popular. So that's interesting that the PS5 is doing that well and might possibly overtake the PS4, probably. Who knows? So that's good. And there's a lot of statistics here, but we're not gonna go on and on about the stats. Basically, all we really need to know is that, 75 million PS5 units are out there in the wild, shipped. Some in stores still haven't been bought, but they're probably gonna be sold in the next year or so. All right. So, and for our next article, Sony's PS5 live service title Fair Games has reportedly slipped. Haven Studios' debut title is reportedly now targeting a release next year. Now, Fair Games, if you guys didn't know, is the probably last Sony PlayStation first-party studio live service game that is still in development, aside from something like, say, Marathon from Bungie, right? So it seems that this game has been delayed, which is according to Giant Bomb journalist Jeff Grubb, who claimed in a podcast this week that the co-op heist shooter first announced nearly 2 years ago has been internally delayed into 2026. It was announced in 2023 with no release window. Fair Games is described by its creators as a fresh, modern take on the heist genre. And this game is being made by Haven Studios with Jade Raymond at the helm, which Jade Raymond the name has been like been tossed around over and over in the PlayStation space, and I honestly don't know too much about her. But they better make this game work after Concord's failure, big crash and burn. And all eyes are going to be on Fair Games, whether people are interested in it or not. A lot of people are going to be waiting for the next reveal of Fair Games, what it's going to be, what it's going to play like, and especially upon its release, it's going to be under a microscope because people either want it to be the next Concord, which is the next big failure from Sony, or some people want to see if this can be maybe the next Helldivers 2 as well. But I have a feeling a lot more people are interested in seeing if it's going to be Concord 2. For me specifically, I'm not really super interested in Fair Games. I think it's being touted as a heist shooter, an extraction shooter, so to speak. And I haven't really been into these types of games. For example, like Escape from Tarkov, right? Even Marathon is being marketed as a extraction shooter. I feel like heist shooter might be a bit different compared to an extraction shooter, but I don't really know. We don't really know what Fair Games is going to be. But first off, I don't know. For Fair Games, I think it's an awful title. I don't know. Fair Games with a $sign. Not really interesting to me. Also, live service game shooter. Not really interesting to me to begin with. And I think I may be part of the guys that are just waiting to see if this is going to be another Concord 2. We'll have to see. Yeah, but Jade Raymond, the name has been brought up all the time, that she probably has a secret sauce somewhere in there for this game, and hopefully turns out good for, people who are fans of it and for PlayStation as well. Because if this turns out to be a big failure like Concord, then I think PlayStation is going to be kind of a laughingstock in live service. What the hell? So yeah. Good luck to Haven Studios with Fair Games, and I hope your effort, you have a gargantuan task. And the task is to just not be Concord. Now, when this releases, there are people that are going to view this through the lens of Concord. It's going to be difficult to please these people. Because they're just going to be like, oh, it's a PlayStation game. It's a PlayStation live service game. Oh, this might be as bad as Concord, then I'm not going to buy it. So it's going to be a gargantuan task to, kind of distance your name away from PlayStation's live service failures. So, Haven Studios, good luck. Next article. Despite its big success, Marvel Rivals director and others have been laid off. The hero shooter's US-based developers have reportedly been hit with layoffs. Now, I think there was a little misunderstanding here when this news hit Twitter, is that I think people thought that it was the actual main director that was laid off in this for Marvel Rivals, but there was an update here from NetEase. First off, what happened was, posting on his LinkedIn profile on Tuesday, NetEase's California-based game director Thaddeus Sasser claimed that an unspecified number of Marvel Rivals American developers had been let go, including himself. So, this is such a weird industry, he wrote. My stellar, talented team just helped deliver an incredibly successful new franchise in Marvel Rivals for NetEase Games, and were just laid off. Gary McGee had been let go as part of the layoffs, while another designer, Jack Burrows, also confirmed that NetEase had let them go. Welp, just got laid off from my job working on Marvel Rivals NetEase. So this is interesting because when this news first hit the internet, people were like, what? Because Marvel Rivals, as you may know from even our previous episode, is a massive success. It has made money, made a lot of money already, even without gacha sensibilities. I think its money is mostly being made from people buying skins, like directly buying skins, not through like a gacha lottery thing, or all the characters are already unlocked. You don't need to buy any character. You don't need to gacha a character to use. It's already all unlocked. So they've only been making money through skins. And they have such a big player base, and it's doing extremely well. So the news of suddenly people being laid off for the game was unthinkable until it happened, right? But there was an update from NetEase. We recently made a difficult decision to adjust Marvel Rivals' development team structure for organizational reasons and to optimize development efficiency for the game. This resulted in a reduction of design team based in Seattle that is part of a larger global design function in support of Marvel Rivals. We appreciate the hard work and dedication of those affected and will be treating them confidentially and respectfully with recognition for their individual contributions. So apparently there were a design team based in Seattle for Marvel Rivals, right? But he isn't the director for Marvel Rivals itself. He's a director that is probably handling a team in the U.S. that is part of the grand structure of the development team, development group, of the multiple teams that support Marvel Rivals. But now, even if it's not as intense as it first was made out to be, because the director of Marvel Rivals is gone. Nope. It's still bad that people still get laid off, considering how successful the game is. Did they really need to be laid off? I don't know. Really? Will they really save some money by laying off the design team in Seattle for their wildly successful game? I don't know. But they did say they're doing some development organizational restructurings, and so they so happen to be part of the laid off camp. Like they unfortunately were part of the camp that needed to be let go according to them. But still, it kind of sucks. It still sucks a lot that even a successful live service game can still result in layoffs. Right? Because that's the whole thing when PlayStation's live service pivot is that they want the live service so they can generate a lot of money in perpetuity as long as the game is alive, and use that money to further fund their other projects, especially their AAA single-player projects that are very expensive to make. And so it seems like they really needed it. And I guess this also means that, if they really needed it, this means they can maybe keep more jobs. They can prevent layoffs from different development teams and stuff like that because they have the money because of a live service game that they have under their belt. But unfortunately, even for something like NetEase to have a good Marvel Rivals, good live service success, still resulting in layoffs, just goes to show that the gaming industry is kind of weird. It's kind of weird right now. So yeah. Sucks. Hopefully they're able to find new jobs in the gaming space or wherever space they hope to be in. But hopefully we just don't get layoffs from big-ass live service games that are successful anyway. How successful do you need to be to prevent, firing people? Yeah. Weird. Sucks. But it is what it is. All right. Next article is talking about NetEase. More than a dozen NetEase studios are reportedly at risk, including Nagoshi, Quantic Dream, and Grasshopper. The Chinese developer has reportedly decided to divest from its international studios. So, NetEase again, after its thing with Marvel Rivals, has just announced like a few days after or something that it's going to let its current international teams keep making the game that they're making right now, but what's going to happen is that they're not going to invest in their next game anymore, and they're not going to fund their next game, and they're not going to be supporting the games that they release post-release anymore. So here is the article. Previously known for its popular PC MMOs, NetEase has expanded significantly in recent years, acquiring established studios from industry veterans in Japan, North America, and Europe. However, as the games industry continues to endure turbulent times, there have been signs that in recent months it could be scaling back its ambitions. Last month, it was confirmed NetEase had split from Vancouver-based Worlds Untold, the studio founded with Mass Effect writer Mac Walters in 2023, as well as Seattle-based Jarv Sparks. Then, earlier this week, it was confirmed that NetEase had laid off US-based developers behind Marvel Rivals. And now, it's going to divest itself of the majority of its overseas teams, which could lead to the closure of more than a dozen game studios if they can't secure new funding. So that will include Like a Dragon designer Toshihiro Nagoshi, who was part of Ryuga Gotoku Studio that left to join NetEase to make games under NetEase. Okay? Also, Resident Evil producer Hiroyuki Kobayashi, as well as Sudo 51, Grasshopper manufacturer. So these Japanese developers are this is their last game under NetEase. So they moved to NetEase to make games. I even remember there was like an article that said where they were interviewing them and they were talking praises about NetEase because they were like, NetEase has allowed us to have more freedom with making the games that we want to make. So apparently that's not true anymore because after the game that they're making right now, it's over. It's Jover for them. They're probably going to be closed down. They're going to lose their jobs after the game they're playing. And they're not going to be able to support the game after its release. So whatever that needs to be done, DLC or a sequel, they're not going to get it because NetEase has divested from its international teams. And I think this comes off the heels of something that happened recently, which could be Black Myth Wukong's success, right? I wouldn't put it past them to look at Black Myth Wukong's success and be like, okay, so looks like we can just invest in our Chinese studios and have success internationally, that there's no reason for us to fund all these other studios internationally where we're spending maybe a bit more than we want to. Let's just invest it in local studios where maybe we can spend cheaper on them as well and make more money. So interesting, because also NetEase in the West this time owns Quantic Dream. Quantic Dream are the makers of Heavy Rain, Detroit Become Human, right? And Call of Duty, they invest in Call of Duty designer David Vonderhaar, Control's lead designer, and more, and has invested in GTA lead Leslie Benzies, build a Rocket Boy as well. So, weird. It's weird. So according to Bloomberg, NetEase studios in Japan, including Nagoshi Studios, have been given time to wrap up ongoing projects, but are not going to receive more funding. And honestly, this kind of sucks. Because I'm pretty sure these guys joined NetEase with the promise of them. Maybe they left their previous company because the offer that they got from NetEase was much better. But turns out it was a double-edged sword because they were going to pull the plug right after their first game, unfortunately. So that's going to be bad. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Hopefully it isn't as bad as we think, because I do like some of these developers here. Like, for example, the Like a Dragon designer, I think he deserves to make more games. Is he going to go back to Ryuga Gotoku Studio? I don't know. We'll see. So, damn it, NetEase. Do better. Okay. So, next article. Next few articles are weird. And I guess it's mostly Xbox, but, given what Xbox is today, its fate is very, very intertwined with that of PlayStation recently. So, according to Video Games Chronicle, I'm not trying to move them all over to Xbox anymore. Phil Spencer explains Xbox's PS5 release strategy. So, Microsoft Gaming CEO said he'd still prefer to sell games on Xbox, but won't ignore other user bases. CEO Phil Spencer shed more light on the company's decision to release more Xbox games on PS5. In an interview with the Xbox Era podcast, Spencer was asked about comments he made during FTC hearing 2023, in which he claimed that every time an Xbox-owned studio sold a game on the PS5 store, Sony's 30% cut was being used towards deals to block other third-party games from coming to Xbox. But now that Xbox is releasing numerous games on PS5, Spencer was asked if he was now less focused about Sony's 30% cut and more focused on the 70% cut Xbox takes on each of its games sold on PS5. So the price for Xbox to sell games on the PlayStation Store is that Sony takes 30% of the profit and Xbox takes 70% of it. So honestly, for Xbox, that seems kind of like a win. That's 70%. Even if they're not getting the 100% from selling on Xbox, PlayStation also has a bigger user base. So that's why I remember they released Sea of Thieves on PS5. You know, an old Xbox game, they released it on PS5 and instantly it became a very big seller on the PS5, and they made a lot of money for free, basically, by selling on PS5. And that was really the first test of that, of the first batch of games that went to the PS5 was the first batch that they tested. And I guess the conclusion was that, yes, we should release all our games on PS5 from now on. But Spencer replied that this was the case, that they were focusing on 70% that are making on PS5, and that trying to get PS5 owners to move to Xbox instead of just selling games directly to them was no longer a viable strategy. It's maybe not what I was going to say on Stan at the time, but yeah, I would love to make all of the money for all of the games that we ship right now. Obviously, we make more on our own platform. It's one of the reasons that investing in our own platform is important. But there are people, whether it's the libraries are on PlayStation or Nintendo, whether it's that they like the controller better, they just like the games that are there, and I don't want to then look at that and say, well, there's no way that we should be able to build a business there, find fans of a franchise there. I'm not trying to move them all over to Xbox anymore. We're also invested in where our games are. Let's just allow more people to play. And yes, the 70% that we make on games on other platforms is helpful to us being able to build great portfolios, right? They are also encountering the issue wherein games are becoming more and more expensive, and in Xbox's case, they need to sell their games on other more popular platforms where people actually buy games. Because one of the things that is also kind of hindering Xbox, in my humble opinion, is that they are cultivating a fan base that does not buy games. They're cultivating a consumer base that buys into Game Pass instead. You know, they buy into the $2. What was that? I guess they've increased the price, but I remember back when I was subscribing to Game Pass, at least with regional pricing, I was only paying literally $2 per month for Game Pass. So even if the people from America, I assume, and these first world countries are paying full price for their Game Pass, there is a whole world out there that are paying pennies for Game Pass. And so even if they release, let's say they release, 10 million people on Game Pass, for example. 10 million people. People immediately assume that's 10 million times 5 or whatever, $10, and that's the amount they're making. That's not really the case. Maybe, let's say 80% of them are from the US or from some first world country that are paying full price. There's a big, maybe 20% out there that are from, SEA that are paying, $2. Just $1 sometimes as well for the Game Pass. So, unfortunately, that's the kind of consumer base that they're cultivating is is a user base that does not buy a game a la carte like for $70 full on and get the full on profit from that. No. So that's why it's important for Xbox to sell both on PlayStation, but I think the more important one might be Switch 2 if it's powerful enough, right? If they could sell, like, for example, Elder Scrolls, the new Elder Scrolls on Switch 2, then that would be ideal. Hopefully they can. But, yeah, so this article just highlights the change in direction that Xbox is going in and how they've moved the goalpost to something else. Because before, one of their things was, we have the best console, right? We have the best exclusives, and you should play on Xbox, right? You should go over to our platform to play on Xbox. But now they've moved the goalpost. Now they're talking about, no. Actually, what we want is for our games to be played everywhere. No matter what you're using, we want you to play Xbox games. We no longer care about you buying our console and playing it on Xbox. We just want you to play our games, please. Right? So yeah, interesting. We'll see how it pans out for them. But actually, this actually kind of makes them, as has been said many times before, makes them one of the biggest, maybe the biggest game publisher in the world. Because once they start publishing everywhere on PlayStation, Xbox, and Switch, and the games, and they have a really big first-party studios, even including Call of Duty, right? Call of Duty, Bethesda games, Activision Blizzard, and stuff like that. That makes them like maybe the biggest game publisher, like console agnostic game publisher, multi-platform game publisher in the world. And there's something to be said about that. But it's no longer, it's no longer like, oh yeah, Xbox as a platform is the biggest thing or something like that. They're not aiming for that anymore. They're just aiming for their products to be ubiquitous as much as they can. Okay. To make the most money. So, that's cool. But also kind of related here, which is very unfortunate, is Microsoft CEO says Xbox will have a catalog of games using generative AI. So Satya Nadella thinks Xbox's new generative AI model is a massive moment of wow. Now this isn't technically PlayStation news, but it is gaming news in the sense that what the hell is going on? So announced earlier this week, Microsoft Muse is a generative AI model that it says can generate game visuals, controller actions, or both. So they used Ninja Theory's 2020 game Bleeding Edge as the source data or something. I don't know what it's called for these AI bros, where the AI studies and then it creates a game on its own based on the game Bleeding Edge. And I'm looking at these videos and they're absolutely freaking horrendous. It does not look good. Doesn't look like it plays like anything. And I don't know what they're thinking here. It's just, are they really? It's weird that they're taking this seriously. Like, they're just going to go with generative AI games. That'd be great. We already have those. We already have a bunch of generative AI games already on the PlayStation Store specifically, or the Steam, right? There's so many simulators with posters that look like they're generated by AI and graphics or whatever, generated by AI and stuff like that. And I can't believe Microsoft is doing this. Because they're already capable of making games. They have so many first-party studios. Why would you need this on top of that? My thinking is that they want to make more games for Game Pass. They want to put more stuff on Game Pass for, I don't know, non-discerning people to play and be like, oh, I want to play this AI game made by computers, like completely made by computers with no human touch at all. Here's one of the quotes said, the cool thing is what I'm excited about is bringing. We're going to have a catalog of games soon that we'll start using the models, or we're going to train these models to generate and then start playing them. In fact, when Phil Spencer first showed it to me, where he had an Xbox controller and this model basically took the input and generated the output based on the input, it was consistent with the game. And to me, that is a massive moment of wow. It's kind of like the first time we saw ChatGPT complete sentences, or DALL-E draw, or Sora. This is kind of one such moment. Unfortunate that they're just gonna have the biggest first party studio catalog in the business and still turn to AI to make more games. I don't know. Something weird's going on there, Microsoft. Hopefully we don't see any of this in the future. I don't want to see it. I don't care. I don't want to see it. Not a single AI game. I think AI has uses, of course. I mean, AI is being used everywhere already in some capacity. But I just don't like it when it's used in things like, for example, video game. Video game is still art, right? I'm not even talking about people losing jobs because of AI or something like that. It's just, there's just no sense in art made by a computer. I don't know. That's what I feel about it. Because when you look at art, right? You look at art and somehow, even if you don't know the artist, you look at art and you see there's an intention in every brushstroke, in every way that they make a character look, or make a landscape look, or something like that, and you get something out of it, and there is an intention that the artist put in every little thing and detail there. Even if you're not good at analyzing art, like a snobby fine art major or something like that, when you look at something that's made by a person, you feel something, and you're like, oh, I wonder. You get something from it. You think more deeply about it. You even think about, even fan art, right? A person who draws fan art of, say, let's say something like Honkai Star Rail, and they draw this character really nicely and very lovingly. You can feel the love of that artist for this character. You know that they play a lot of Honkai Star Rail. You know that Honkai Star Rail is an important game to them. Maybe touch their lives in some ways, and that's why they're able to produce this beautiful piece of art. And you can get that back and forth with the art piece, and get something from the art, get something raw, and get some emotion out of it. But if you look at a piece of art generated by a computer, and you're trying to think of, why did the computer make it this way, and you'll get nothing out of it. The computer does not think, does not feel. It does not do things with intention. It kind of does based on how it's programmed, but there's no feeling in it. It's not like the computer played Honkai Star Rail and was super inspired by it and made this piece of art. No. It's just one guy who is making a little descriptions on his AI art, whatever, prompt thing. And then the computer's like, okay, and that's it. So I don't want to see that in games, because the greatest thing about games is that there is so much intention in every little thing, every little detail, the art style, the art direction, the gameplay intention, the how they support player agency, how they do gameplay, how they do combat systems, how they do storytelling, how they craft the cutscenes and stuff like that. one of the best things about it, of course, the thing that makes these pieces of art and games alive is that they're made by humans and are made from human experience, blood, sweat, and tears about passionate people from different walks of life and contributing a piece of them to the whole illustration. But for AI art, there's nothing in there. Sure, it can produce beautiful looking work, but art isn't just about something looking beautiful, looking nice. Art is more than that. So, please stop using this nonsense. All right. Next up, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. I'm so happy about this. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 tops 2 million sales in 2 weeks. See? This is what you want to hear. If a game is good, you want it to sell a lot. You want the devs to be able to recoup their costs, or at least to break even, to be able to be secure with their jobs. And you want them to be able to look forward to their next project, right? So Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 made 2 million in 2 weeks. Meanwhile, Alan Wake 2, which is also just made by a just as competent team with a just as good game in some ways, in many ways, reached 2 million copies in how many months? Maybe a year? I don't know. They were shaking their boots probably the whole time. They haven't recouped their costs. So, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 has now surpassed 2 million sales within its first 2 weeks on the market. And the thing about Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is that it's a much more niche game, I guess. Not really in the fact that it's a first-person, not really fantasy, but, you know, like kind of like medieval swords and stuff like that simulator. But like I said, it's not based in fantasy. It doesn't have magic, doesn't have dragons. It's just trying to be historically accurate Bohemia. And that's about it. As a first-person Skyrim type game that's just based in reality. So, the hardcore RPG certainly won't appeal to everyone. This will be a push square, but it's really managed to strike a chord with those who enjoy its historical setting and deeply involved gameplay systems. And I think this game cost $40 million to make. So, I think, how much does this game cost? 60... This $40 million. I think this is like a $60 game. I think. So times 2 million. They already made $120 million. Roughly $120 million. So they're already well above breaking even. That doesn't include marketing costs, but even if it does, let's say marketing cost is 100%. Let's say it costs $40 million to make the game, $40 million for marketing, then they're still way above their the costs that they use to make the game. And by the way, $40 million is roughly also the price of the development cost of a normal Yakuza game. So yay to more sensible, reasonable budgets for games and making more money because of it. But still being good. So congratulations to Warhorse Studios for a very successful launch. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. I just finished Kingdom Come Deliverance like a week ago. So I'm super excited to start playing this as well. For Kingdom Come Deliverance, my review of that is coming soon. It's going to be a spoiler cast. So I'm going to go in depth and really talk about my experience with Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Even Kingdom Come Deliverance 1, even if I didn't play absolutely everything, I mostly went through the main storyline and some side quests and didn't really do many of its gameplay systems, but I at least just wanted to finish the story, the main story first before going to Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. So I'm excited to start 2, play it on PS5. Probably. I don't know if my PC can handle it with streaming and everything, but yeah. Congratulations. And now our last piece of PlayStation news is Sony is now the second largest company in Japan by market capitalization. Known as Tokyo Tsushin Kogyo and first founded in 1946, the company we know now as Sony, or more appropriately, the Sony Group Corporation, has come a very, very long way indeed. What began as a tiny electronics shop with 8 employees, part of the nationwide economic rebuilding effort after World War II, has risen to become Japan's second largest company by market capitalization, largely thanks to the PlayStation division of the company, far and away its most profitable. So they have a market cap of $149 billion US dollars. Sony has entered the top 3 Japanese firms, surpassing automobile manufacturer Mitsubishi's $146 billion. However, it's still far behind Japan's biggest company, Toyota. So Sony is just going neck to neck, head to head with car companies. You know, Sony's most profitable division is PlayStation, selling $60 games, $70 games, $600 consoles, and they're going against Japanese companies selling $1,000 cars. Right? $1,000 cars, everybody having a car somewhere in the world, right? From Toyota, Mitsubishi. And Sony is now number 2. So, very cool. Interesting, but you also have to understand Sony is more than just PlayStation. Is more than just PlayStation. They have so many things. They have insurance. They have movies, TV, anime, manga. They just acquired Kadokawa, right? I mean, at least part of Kadokawa, or at least became like a majority minor investor, something like that. I forgot what the term was, but they have their toes in different industries for sure. Also, tech, of course, tech. Let's not forget that. TVs, right? Audio equipment. So they're pulling their weight for sure as compared to these car companies. But wow, it's cool to see that Sony is just up there. And a large part of it is being carried by PlayStation of all things. Is that crazy? It's kind of crazy to me. I would have thought that maybe its movies division would be more profitable, or maybe it's like music, or even its tech, right? But it's PlayStation. So congratulations to Sony for that. And that's it for the smaller like PlayStation news. Time to move on to some good old news about RPGs, right? And the big one here is that it's not super big. It's just, it's just rumors and talks about things. But 2 big Final Fantasy remakes are reportedly still in active development. Both Final Fantasy remakes are said to have been in the works for years. This is from Video Games Chronicle. An FF9 remake is reportedly still in development alongside a remake of Final Fantasy Tactics. So according to noted industry insider Nate the Hate, who was a record of revealing information about video games ahead of their official reveal, both titles which have been rumored for several years are still on the way. Both remain in active development. FF9 Remake isn't expected to see a release in 2025. Maybe we'll see it launch in 2026. FF9 was first released in 2000. And it was released late into the PlayStation 1 generation, and was in many ways Final Fantasy's return to form after it going a more modern technological route with Final Fantasy 7 and Final Fantasy 8. And Final Fantasy IX is my favorite Final Fantasy still. Even if I really loved Final Fantasy 16, when upon leading up to the release of Final Fantasy 16, I was kind of thinking, could this possibly become my favorite Final Fantasy? And while I did enjoy it a lot, enjoyed it so much, I think Final Fantasy IX is still my most favorite Final Fantasy. So I can't wait to see F9 Remake. Please just show it already. A trailer. If it's going to release in 2026, show the trailer now. You know, so I can get excited about it. And even if it's... I hope to God it's not an FF7 type of gargantuan project. You know, I'll be happy if it's just like, let's say... I think they did say it's like kind of like Vision of Mana. Like and how big it's going to be as a remake, right? So, that's going to be cool. So please, I hope it's a reality. I think the other game that is still in development could be Final Fantasy Tactics Remake, which is also a big one, if that ever happens. Because I wonder what type of remake it's going to be. It's likely not going to be, again, Final Fantasy VII Remake, but what? Is it going to be like Visions of Mana as well? That's going to be so cool to see, especially in the type of genre the game is. If it's going to be a really nice-looking tactical RPG game. Because I feel like a bunch of tactical RPGs, even recent ones, have been using mostly like 2D art, 2D sprites. It will be interesting to see how they go about Final Fantasy Tactics. If they're going to go just still 2D sprites and stuff like that, or are they gonna like make it more high definition, so to speak, more 3D? It's gonna be great. I can't wait. Okay, so more from Final Fantasy is Final Fantasy is looking like one of the standout sets of Magic the Gathering releasing this year. This is from RPG site. Over the past couple of days, Wizard of the Coast has begun pulling back the curtains on 2025's first Universes Beyond release for Magic the Gathering, featuring Final Fantasy, beginning with a large reveal on IGN of the 4 Commander pre-constructed decks, followed the next day by a new weekly MTG stream showcasing additional spoilers for other cards that players can look forward to. So, first revealed on IGN, each of the 4 pre-con decks focus on a different memorable entry from Square's long-running franchise, with that game's respective hero serving as a deck's commander. These decks include Cloud, Ex-Soldier for FF7, FF6 Terra, Herald of Hope, Tidus, Yuna's Guardian, and lastly, Ishtola, Knights Blessed, the critically acclaimed MMORPG with an expanded free trial from FF14. Yeah. So I'm just looking at the thing here, and the most amazing thing about these cards is the art. That they use. Oh my god, it's so good. It's so good. And the art is not in typical Final Fantasy style. It has a more Western type of sensibility with the art here. Oh, it's so good. Emmett Selk looks so nice. Cecil, Redeemed Paladin. Holy crap, Cecil Dark Knight. Oh. Go check this out. Ishtola in this style. Wow. It's so good. I love it. What a perfect combination. Right? Actually, it's a combination I never kind of expected. Magic the Gathering is a very Western type of thing, and they're now collabing with Final Fantasy, which is more Eastern, Japanese thing. That's interesting. All right. I'm not really into any card game, but I'll probably won't even buy any of this for Final Fantasy and Magic the Gathering thing, but it's pretty interesting to see. Okay. And the last one for RPG news is evidence mounts for seemingly inevitable Persona 4 remake on PS5. So in good news for fans of great games, evidence continues to mount that Atlus is grinding away on the seemingly inevitable Persona 4 remake. Considering the 2024 remake Persona 3 Reload was the firm's fastest selling game to date, we believe that is what is widely considered the best entry in the series would see similar treatment, and that was before singer Shikoka Hirata began spilling the beans. So yeah. So this whole news was just because of Hirata, the one who sings like the Persona songs, you know, the iconic voice, is back in the booth, specifically MIT Studio 2 in Tokyo, where the vast majority of Persona soundtracks have been recorded over the past decade. Hirata revealed she's been recording for an unannounced game, and Rudiger managed to deduce it was in the same studio seen in Persona 5 Strikers recording making of documentary. If Hirata isn't recording for a Sega-specific game such as Persona or Yakuza or Like a Dragon, it would mark the first time the studio has been used for an outside IP in years. The songstress has also been recently liking replies referencing Persona 4. So that was a pretty interesting find, and the evidence really is pointing towards something at least Persona related. Now, why they think it's Persona 4? I think it's because she did, the vocal performances for songs in Persona 4. This could also very well be Persona. I don't know, Persona. Actually, nothing. Persona 3 Reload DLC. I don't know. Persona 1 remake could be Persona 1 remake. Persona 2 remake. Although the music there isn't still, isn't like the modern Persona games we have, but who knows, right? There isn't going to be a Persona 5 remake for sure, so that's why I guess they default to Persona 4, and I don't think they're going to be... Or Persona 6 could be a possibility. I don't know. Metaphor DLC? I don't know. Probably not, since she isn't singing there for Metaphor. But that's interesting. She's using the studio that has been mostly been making Sega stuff. Could be Like a Dragon. Pirate Kiryu? I don't know. So yeah. If we get a Persona 4 remake, that'd be super cool. I want to play it. For sure. All right. And that is it for the RPG news. And now the next segment is a game I've been playing. And I haven't been playing a lot of games since my Japan trip, so this is probably going to be a short segment. But yeah. Okay. So for what I've been playing this past week has been I finished Kingdom Come Deliverance. Now I don't really want to talk too much about it, but because I'm going to be doing a spoiler cast where I just talk about it more and more in depth, and probably for a longer runtime as well. But all I have to say is that when I finished the game, I was playing the game on Steam Deck, and I was at my dining table. I was playing the game, and then I reached the ending, and I cried. I shed a tear because that game is so good. It's so good. Everything about the experience is so intimate and so I don't want to say emotional. It's so endearing that I can't believe that I got this kind of response to this video game that's about a culture and country I know nothing about, that is not even like based in a fantasy world, and it's just based on real life, based on a real location with real life lore grounded in real life. Yeah, because one of the things about, let's say, a fantasy game is that with Dungeons and Dragons and fireballs and ice attacks or whatever, is that during the runtime of the game, you're always being fed like lore about the world, about the struggles of the world, and about, you know, the things that people think about, feel, or even the characters and the lore and stuff. It's always like that, and that's how they make you care about the citizens of the world and about their struggles and about the overarching story of this fantasy world. But for games that are set in reality, a lot of things aren't super explained. And sometimes if you base a game in reality, some things might be too complicated to explain, because we have like thousands upon thousands of years of actual lore for our world. And sometimes it becomes a bit too... Sometimes it creates some sort of distance, right? Because there's this very complicated real-life world that it's referring to, and the events of of real life and all its complexities, as compared to, let's say, a fantasy game where everything is made to be funneled to the player so that they get to understand the world like better, this fantasy world. And so I feel like fantasy worlds have less detail compared to real life settings. And that's what I kind of felt here in Kingdom Come Deliverance, is that, God, I am not understanding a single thing about 1400 Bohemia, about its practices, about all these terminology and things like that, because it's a bit complicated. So it gets very complicated because it's not like the lore about her real world isn't a thing that's very curated by a writer or something like that. It's actual human experience, and trying to condense that into a game and trying to explain it to the player is a bit difficult. And so that inherently creates some sort of distance between me and the game that I felt in the beginning, because I have no idea who King Sigismund is, who King Wenceslaus is. Even if you're saying the events of what they were talking about, I'm like, bro, what are they even like quarreling over? I don't understand. Because, for example, in a fantasy game, they're quarreling over the domination of a kingdom. They're at war with each other. They kidnapped a princess and they want to save him. You know, it's very simple. I mean, it's not simple, but it's very understandable because the whole story is curated in that way. But if you're referencing a actual historical event, sometimes it gets very complicated, and that's what I'm talking about. There seems like to be a barrier between the world that I'm viewing in this game and my understanding of it. But however, the thing about Kingdom Come Deliverance is that, in spite of it being set in a complicated era in real life, I think it's very ingenious. It's so ingenious how intimate they made the story. Because all in all, the story is about Henry. Henry being a blacksmith's son. And at least in this time, from what I understand, a blacksmith's son is literally a nobody. They're no one. And so, in a complicated world, you are playing a nobody who is simple, who is undergoing simple struggles, small struggles, in a complex backdrop that's going on like off screen, right? So, and this perspective definitely made the story of Kingdom Come Deliverance much more intimate than I expected. Like, I did not learn next to nothing about the history of Bohemia during my playthrough of the game, but I learned about Henry's struggles in it. I learned about the things he cares about, the things the people around him cares about, even if I'm in the middle of this complex political upheaval in Bohemia, I was just, doing small things. And these small things you just get to experience, and you get to really intimately know Henry's story, that by the end, you can't help but feel for him. You can't help but feel like you know him. You know what he feels, his struggles, and all the emotions that come with it. And then, so when I was at the ending and things came to a head and a certain scene popped up, I just was like, damn. Wow. What an engaging and emotional story that's definitely helped by the fact that you're playing just this nobody in a complicated world. And I don't really want to talk too much about it. I'm going to talk more about it in the spoiler cast, but Kingdom Come Deliverance is one of my favorite games ever, for sure. So I can't wait to dive into Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. But yeah. But the other game that I've been playing after that is mostly Balatro. Yeah. Balatro, I've played maybe 10 to 15 hours of it after I finished Kingdom Come Deliverance. And let's just say I now know why Balatro is as revered and as positively talked about as it is in gaming critique spaces, in gaming review spaces, in basically any space in the gaming industry that is concerned about criticizing games and judging games or ranking games or rating games and stuff like that. Because while Balatro is popular in that way critically, it's not as popular as, say, Genshin, or it's not as popular as, mainstream music or something like that. I feel like I have this weird warped view of it when I first played it, when I first saw it on different Game of the Year discussions, and there's always much ado about how ubiquitous it is. It's on phones. It's everywhere. But then I realized that no, people are playing Candy Crush and stuff like that. They're not playing Balatro. You go outside and people are on their phones playing, I don't know, whatever small game it is, or casino slots or something like that, more than playing Balatro. You will rarely see anyone outside playing Balatro, even if it is like the Game of the Year, stuff like that. But yeah, playing Balatro. I was initially very scared of it. I thought it was going to be about poker, but honestly, it's not. So Balatro is this card game where it uses poker hands and assigns a score that you can get per poker hand. So if you get if you get a pair, which is basically just two cards that are similar, it attaches a score to it. Let's say 10 points. Now, if you get a poker hand that's, let's say, higher, a flush, a royal flush or something, then they assign maybe 50 points to that, right? So that's cool. So your goal per match, so to speak, is to reach a certain point goal that the game decides for you. So, for example, the game decides, okay, for this match, you need to reach 300 points. And therefore, while you're drawing your cards, you need to determine if there are any poker hands that you can do to reach that score. So, for example, in a match where you need 100 points, and let's say a royal flush is 50, the easiest way to get to 100 is to maybe do 2 royal flushes, right? Technically. However, it also introduces this concept of multipliers, which are affected in many, many ways by many different things. So this is where things get very fun. Is that it's one thing to just have a deck of cards and you just choosing poker hands and stuff like that to reach a score. But it's another thing when it introduces magic, different types of magic cards, right? Like the cards are like planet cards, they're like tower cards, there are glass cards, diamond cards. There's so many different types of cards, modifiers, jokers, or something like that, that modify certain types of abilities on your deck. So for example, let's say you draw a card. In between a match, you go to a store, and in that store, you buy stuff from the store. And then you buy, like, booster packs or something like that give you different effects for your cards. So let's say you open a booster pack, and then that booster pack contained a joker. Now, jokers are basically the biggest gameplay element of this game. Jokers are these cards that really affect how you interact with your deck. For example, if you can get a joker card that will say, if you play a hand with 3 cards or less, you get let's just say you get a ×4 to your multiplier, okay? So what this means is that if you play a pair, right? If you play a pair, let's say two cards, if you play that pair, which costs 10 points, you have the joker card with you that says if you play a hand with less than 3 cards, you get a ×5 multiplier. So if you play a pair, which is 10 points, the joker adds a ×5 multiplier to the 10 points to make it 50 points. And so you got 50 points because of that multiplier. And so you can imagine you can get like maybe 4 to 5 jokers per run. So you're opening booster packs to get a new joker. Let's say you get a joker that is, if all the cards in your hand are spades, then you get a ×5 multiplier. So here is where things get interesting. So let's say so you still have those 2 jokers, right? You got the joker where it says if you play a hand that's less than 3 cards, you get a ×5 multiplier. Then the other joker is like if all the cards in your hand are spades, then you also get a ×5 multiplier. So what happens is, let's say on your next draw, every card in your hand is a spade, right? Okay, cool. And then you play 2 cards, let's say 2 jacks, to create a pair. So a pair is 10 points. Now, because you played a hand that's less than 3 cards, the joker that is appropriate for that will give you ×5 multiplier. So that makes your 10 points into 50 points, right? Now, however, you also have the other joker where it says that if all the cards in your hand are spades, then you get a ×5 multiplier. So in the case earlier, I told you that all our cards are spades. So you have 50 points already. You add ×5 to the multiplier, and now you have 250 points. And for example, if the goal you're trying to reach is 100 points, then easily with just one pair, you get 250 points, and that's pretty cool. So that's how it works. So it only uses poker hands to determine like points and stuff like that, but it's about all the other stuff. All the other stuff will determine like how many points you can actually get. Oops, sorry, had to go for a second there. But yeah, so you can imagine, right? So you can basically... Now, there's a lot of other things that you can do to your deck as well. One of the biggest things is you can shape it in a way that you want. If you want more spades cards, let's say you got that card where the joker, where it says if you have all spades in your hand, then you get a ×5 multiplier. So along the way, as you play the game, you can shape your deck to have all spades cards only. Or maybe there is a joker that says you get a ×5 multiplier if you have cards that are 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 in your deck. And now, in some way, you can destroy cards, you can replace cards, you can duplicate cards, so you can get a deck that's mostly 2, 4, 6, 8, 10s to really take advantage of that joker if you want. And there's so many different types of jokers. There's like, they just range from so many different abilities and different effects. There's one that adds, like, add +1 to the cards that you draw. Something as simple as that. But if you do that, that basically guarantees that you can get one of those poker hands that you have like 5 cards of the same suit, because you're drawing 1 extra card per turn, meaning the chances of you getting 5 cards of the same suit becomes higher, right? Or you can get other types of cards, which is like get a ×10 multiplier if you get a royal flush or a straight or stuff like that. And then you also get these other cards, which are called like planet cards. Planet cards are cards that let you level up the hand, the type of poker hand that you're specializing in. So if, let's say, you're specializing in pair, right? You can get a certain card, a planet card that says a level up pair, the pair poker hand. And by leveling up the pair poker hand, if earlier a pair is equivalent to 10 points, if you level it up, you can make it equivalent to 20 points. And now you can imagine if you have other jokers that increase the multiplier on that, then you can scale your score higher and higher. And one of the things that is very important about this game is it's a roguelike. So how does that work? So when you start a game, you are introduced to different kind of levels, different battles with different blinds, they call it, right? So every stage is a set of 3 blinds. There's the first blind, which is the one with the least points that you need to beat. Second blind is, the next more point, you need to beat it with more points, and the third blind is considered the boss blind. So, just for example, let's say the first blind requires you only to finish it by getting more than 300 points. Cool. Second blind, after that, you need to get 600 points. Cool. So you do your poker hands and all the multipliers and stuff to get 600 points. Then the third blind is a boss blind, and these boss blinds have different abilities. For example, one boss blind has this ability where all hearts cards are debuffed, right? Meaning every heart card that you play will not get points, and any abilities attached to these heart cards will not proc, will not be activated. So let's say you have a heart card specifically that's like, if you play this heart card, you get ×2 multiplier, stuff like that. They will be debuffed. They will not get points. Points are chips. They will not get points. And they will also not be able to apply their ×2 multiplier. So that's an example of boss blind. And then another type of boss blind is, for example, a very large chip boss blind. So for example, let's say you're in this stage where the first blind you need to beat, let's say, 10,000 points. Then the next blind, you need to beat 13,000 points. Now, if the third blind is the very large boss blind, then it'll require you to suddenly beat 200,000 points, right? So there's a lot of things like that. There even is a boss blind where they're like, you're not allowed to use a poker hand more than once. So once you've played a pair, if you play a pair again, it will not score, right? You are only allowed to use poker hands once in that battle. And there is another boss blind that's like, you are only allowed to play one hand in the whole battle. Meaning, the very first hand that you play, that's it. It's all or nothing. So, for example, it requires 10,000 points and you can only play one hand. Then you need to make sure that you can reach 10,000 points with just one hand that you play, right? So it gets complicated like that. So then in between the blinds, you visit a shop. And it's in that shop that you get to buy jokers, get to buy planet cards, get to buy whatever you want. Because after every blind, you get money. Let's say you get like $3 per blind or something like that. So you need to manage your money when you're buying booster packs, planet cards, jokers to kind of make your deck better. And then you go through the motions, going through different blinds and stuff like that. And then as the game goes on, the points that the blinds require from you become larger and larger. So I think at the start, you start with 300 points. You need to beat 300 points, right? But as the game goes on, you can go up to 270,000, 300,000, millions, depending on how far you can get. And that's why it's a roguelike, because you can get to higher levels as much as you can. But when you die, you go back to the start. And then kind of recalibrate your deck, see what you can improve upon, and then get higher and higher until you get whatever score you want to get, or however high you want to be. And that's why it's a roguelike. So think of it like something like Hades, right? You're going through a dungeon and you're learning as you go through the dungeon, then you go back, you buy some upgrades, and then you tackle the dungeon again, then you get farther until you get to the big boss at the very end. So that's the whole concept for Balatro, is that it's basically just that, but a card game with some poker hands and a lot of magic like cards that shape your deck and that will give you varying effects depending on how you kind of equip these jokers, kind of how you use the tarot cards. Tarot cards are another thing altogether where they give like special abilities to your individual cards. So, for example, they can make a card a special card wherein they get 1 in 2 chance to get a ×2 multiplier or something like that. It gets very... You can get very into the weeds with that very, very quick. It's very addicting. Now, there's also this concept of decks, right? There's also a bunch of pre-made decks that can give you a challenge depending on what you want. For example, this deck that I use a lot is the what was it? The checkered deck. Checkered deck it's called, which basically gives you a deck that's just a bunch of spades and a bunch of hearts. There's no diamonds, there's no whatever. It's just all spades and all hearts, which is interesting because this means you can play a hand where it's all hearts, you can play a hand where it's all spades, and those are high point, high value poker hands to play. However, there are certain instances where the boss blind will say all hearts cards are debuffed, right? So if you've been shaping your deck to be all mostly hearts cards, then because of this boss blind saying all hearts cards are debuffed, then that basically disables 50% of your deck or more, depending on how you shape your deck. And how you overcome that, it's up to you. How do you, on the process to getting to that boss, what type of jokers do you have? What type of tarot cards did you get? What type of planet cards did you get? How did you shape your deck? So how will you overcome this challenge with your deck, right? So that's that. And there's also this concept of seeds. Seeds are... So if you generate a seed is kind of like a... So when you start a game, it generates a seed. And the seed is kind of the predetermined RNG of the whole run, right? Like what type of drops you get in the store at certain stages of the run. Now, if you generate a seed, you can keep playing that seed over and over, and the types of things that will show up in the seed will always be the same. If you do the same thing in that seed, the outcome will always be the same all the time. The types of drops you get, the types of boss blinds you get, the order in which they arrive will be all the same. So, which is very interesting from a gameplay standpoint, because what you can do is you can hyper focus on optimizing your deck to get through that seed, because everything repeats. It's predictable. Everything that happens is predictable because the RNG is already locked in. So stage 1 will always have this boss, stage 2 will always have that boss, stage 3 will always have this boss, unless, of course, you manipulate things. You can even like re-roll the boss if you want. You can buy some sort of voucher so you can change the boss whenever you want to by paying $10. It's so involved. It's so deep. It's so addicting. And playing it made me realize how this game has always been in the Game of the Year conversation of 2025. It makes sense to me now. Everything just makes sense. Everything clicked. I was like, oh, I get it. I get it. I know why you're here. I know why you're being said in the same breath as stuff like Astrobot, right? Because you're just made like that. You're just really good like that, Balatro. I get it. So Balatro made by one single person with some help from others for like maybe the music and stuff like that. But I think the art and the gameplay systems themselves were just made by one person. And they're probably heckin' rich right now, because I'm pretty sure this was very inexpensive to make, aside from, time and effort. The budget for this is, I'm pretty sure, just very low. And so I'm happy for them. They're probably rich right now, have more money than they could even think of using, all from a very small card game that could, with very deep mechanics. So that's what I've been playing, Balatro, and I hope while you've been listening here is like, oh my god, I can't understand a single thing that he's saying. It makes sense unless you actually play it. So, I think it's a very safe game to play. Depending on who you are, you'll definitely not like it. I can't really recommend it to everyone. It's still a card game. You're going to look at it and go, why are you playing solitaire? And I won't really fault you for being like, what the heck, this is so weird. But if you're really interested in it, just pull the trigger and buy it. All right? If you think any of this is intriguing, just do it. Just buy it. I think you will definitely get some enjoyment out of it, for sure, if you give it a chance, right? It's just that really good of a game. So, yeah. Aside from Balatro and Kingdom Come Deliverance, I haven't really played anything. What I really want to play soon is Pirate, the Like a Dragon pirate game. Pirate in Hawaii. That seems very interesting. And while in Japan here, I kind of want to get a copy of stuff like Drakengard 3 or Dragon Dragoon like 1 and 2. We'll see how... We'll see if I can get copies of these games, because I do want to play them. But yeah. That's it for the games I've played this past week since we last met. And now we can move on to the final section of this podcast, which is the biggest news of the past 2 weeks. And that is actually the state of play. So we're going to be doing a play-by-play kind of state of play, thoughts about all the games that can come up in state of play that I'm interested in. And that's going to be fun. Hello, I'm back. And I apologize that my voice is a bit different right now. It's because after that last segment, I not really fell asleep. I slept because I recorded that around 12 midnight, like 11 to 12 midnight, and then ended around 1 a.m., 1:30 a.m. or something like that, because I got home really late. So now I slept first, and right before this segment, I just woke up. Like, it's currently 6:50 a.m. that I'm recording this, and I woke up just maybe 10 minutes earlier, so here we are. So my voice is still a bit hoarse, but I really wanted to talk about the state of play and get this episode out today for all of you, early listeners, and for the rest of you, you'll be able to hear this at the normal time on YouTube. But we're going to be talking about a state of play that happened just a week ago. And State of Play, if you guys didn't know, is this kind of, it's not regular these days, but it's every so often PlayStation does these State of Plays, which are basically Nintendo Directs but for PlayStation. And they're usually for giving updates about certain games, about games that have already been announced, and also a place to announce new games. But there is like a certain distinction between a State of Play and a PlayStation Showcase, wherein PlayStation Showcases are where a lot of the big announcements happen. And State of Plays are usually, more meager, so to speak, meager events compared to that. However, I have to say, this State of Play, I really, really enjoyed it. But as per usual, a lot of people did not. But at this point, because at this point, there will be a lot of people who will not like your stuff. It doesn't matter what you are putting out there, whether it's a State of Play, a Nintendo Direct, or, just a YouTuber putting out a video. A lot of people will just absolutely hate and dislike your stuff. And the sad thing is they're also the ones that are very vocal on the internet. They're the ones who will go out of their way and post in chat that, oh, another L from Sony. Oh, no, this video is terrible, right? But that's just expected at this point. And I don't think I want to beleaguer the point that, God, you guys, those people just can't be satisfied with anything, right? Because I really thought this show was great. Maybe one of the better State of Plays in recent memory. And there were so many new games, albeit from third party, right? But does it really matter whether a game is from third party or first party? Because we know that the first party is cooking and second party, right? Even if a few projects have been canceled for some of those first party studios, they are cooking right now. And they will release their games when it's appropriate. And I think we do still have 2 games on first party this year, and that's Death Stranding 2, as well as Death Stranding on the Beach, as well as something else. There was one more. What was that one? Ghosts of Yote, which, by the way, aren't just any first party games. They're literally the cream of the crop. Like, I guess technically Death Stranding 2 isn't first party, but still, it's a PlayStation exclusive. Then Ghost of Yote, right? These aren't slouches, and I think more than make up for any perceived first party lacking this year. Because we're also getting a lot of other stuff. Whether they're exclusive or not, there are games on the PS5, PC, Xbox, Nintendo Switch. There are games. But there's been this weird thing these days where people are betting on their console like it's a NBA team. Where they're like, oh yeah, my console only. Like, console wars and stuff like that. Oh, my console is the best because it has this game. It has this studio making this game and stuff like that. It's not relying on third party or whatever. But honestly, in the grand scheme of things, a game is a game. Right? So, and I don't know. It was funny. I made a bingo card for this State of Play, and it just totally slipped my mind that I shouldn't be expecting all first party to show their stuff. So I got a really bad bingo card, unfortunately, but I'm still happy about that. So, State of Play. They announced around 30 games, I think. Some games we already know. I'm not going to talk too much about the games we already know. Like, for example, they showed off Monster Hunter Wilds, and that is about to release like tomorrow. So I'm not going to be talking about those. I'm going to be talking about mostly the new stuff, or the new stuff that I am interested in. Just in general. Okay. So first off is Shinobi Art of Vengeance. The iconic Shinobi returns an all-new 2D action platformer with a unique hand-drawn look created by the team behind the hit brawler Streets of Rage 4. Play as the legendary Shinobi Joe Musashi, master of the ninja arts. After finding your village burned to the ground and your clan turned into stone, you must set off on a quest for vengeance, ready to face an unparalleled evil and avenge your clan. Now, this was very this was a great way to start the show, because what was that? There was another event where the first game that they showed, it was the Game Awards, where the first game that they showed was the new Ninja Gaiden 2D side-scroller game that looked absolutely beautiful. I'm super excited for that too. And it's fun that they started this show with a similar type of game. You know, it's about ninjas. But the art style for this one really reminded me of Okami, which is quite surprising because I don't think I've ever seen a game that looked like Okami until now. Considering how popular and how critically acclaimed Okami is, I would have expected more games to get that kind of like Japanese painted kind of style. But it's the first time that I've seen one that looks at least as competent as what we saw in Okami. And so Shinobi Art of Vengeance, 2D side-scroller, should be good. Excited for it. We'll definitely play this down the line. Yep. And next game, Sonic Racing Crossworlds from Sega. The first one was also from Sega. Sonic Racing Crossworlds, get ready for races that transcend dimensions. Sonic has traveled to all kinds of worlds over the years, but when the travel rings bring him to the multiverse, a brand new adventure, unpredictable races, and wild competitions await. Well, not really interested about this, as I'm generally just not interested in Sonic, even if I was a Sega kid way back when. My family had a Famicom, but then when they gave me a console, they gave me a Sega Genesis, and then I never really had a Nintendo console until the Nintendo Game Boy. Yeah, so I was a Sega kid back then, but I definitely really wasn't into Sonic. I don't know. There's just something about him. I don't like him. But I do know that a lot of people like him, so here we are. Sonic Racing Crossroads. It looked pretty cool, though. Yeah. Then we have Digimon Story Time Stranger, which is some sort of, I guess, sequel or a brand new entry to the franchise that started in 2015 of Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth, started by Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth. Then later on in 2017 by another game, Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth Hacker's Memory. I was only able to play the first one on the PS Vita, which was really good. I didn't finish it though, but in terms of it being a cool like monster catching like a Pokemon type of game, the Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth was definitely, I enjoyed it more than any of the Pokemons that I played before, because I just really like the aesthetic more rather than the more, I guess, cartoony, chibi style of the Pokemons. And also, I have definitely fallen off with Pokemon for sure ever since. So it's been so long ago now. So, Digimon Story Time Stranger, Bandai Namco Entertainment today announced the development of Digimon Story Time Stranger, the brand new entry in the Digimon Story game franchise, coming in 2025 on PS5, Xbox Series XS, and PC. Along with its RPG and monster taming elements where players will be able to tame, recruit, and train their Digimon, Digimon Story Time Stranger offers dynamic turn-based combat, including an incredible variety of Digimon. This, combined with deep customization and evolution options, provides limitless ways to approach battles, revealing the strength of the bonds between the players and their Digimon to unleash their full potential. Now, when this game came on screen during the state of play, it was immediately very, very noticeable. Like, the presence of it was very palpable because the cutscenes that they showed and the art style and everything just evoked a really classic look like an old, not really an old anime. It still looks very modern, but it's not like stuff like Genshin. You know, it didn't look like the Wuthering Waves or something like that. It looked distinctly different. It's still anime, but it had a strong kind of sense of art direction. And then I was so surprised when suddenly it was revealed it's Digimon, and I was like, damn, it's been so long since we had a real turn-based Digimon game that looked like this, and that was way back when, back in 2017. So I'm glad they still decided to come and release a new one, and I feel like this could be bigger than the first two games. Mostly because, you know, it's going to be also on PS5 and all the modern stuff on PC and everything. But also because maybe in my brain, people are craving for a monster hunting, monster catching game that I think it was evidence when Pal World released that people are craving for something else. I don't know. I don't really know the state of Pokemon at the moment. But I'm just going to assume that there is a big ravenous fandom out there of Pokemon, of monster catching games that are willing to try some new experiences, and this is one of them. So can't wait for this to come out. I will definitely play this because it's just well within my like interests, because I also don't really like Pokemon. I mean, don't play it anymore, but I still kind of want that experience of catching Pokemon and then summoning them to be used in battle. I do kind of want that, but in a different setting. And Digimon Story Time Stranger looks to be that. So looking forward to that. Then next game on our list is Lost Soul Aside. Now it's been a long time coming for Lost Soul Aside. And just a little history lesson for Lost Soul Aside is that this was initially being developed by independent developer Yang Bin many, many years ago, as far back as 2014, after he was inspired by footage of Final Fantasy 15. And a prototype of the title was shared in 2016, received attention from several publications as well as Sony, because 15 was in a weird situation. It was just in general a weird situation, and that this suddenly coming along and looking like it, but in some ways looking better. Not really better in terms of scope and stuff like that, but it just looked like it retained a lot of that edginess that I feel like 15 lost from Versus 13, which was initially its title and its form before Tetsuya Nomura gave the game up to Hajime Tabata. So what happened was Sony noticed this game and they enlisted Lost Soul Aside in its China Hero Project. Sony's China Hero Project is its initiative to cultivate talent from China, to fund and give support to certain studios that show promise in China, to help them get their game out and publish their games so that they can reach a wider audience, and hopefully, which will in turn make more games for the platform in the end. And of course, it being in China is definitely much cheaper of a place to develop games rather than the typical places that they develop games in the US. And that's what they've been doing. They have China Hero Project, they have MENA Hero Project, they also have India Hero Project. And these are up and coming places where talent is being cultivated for video games and the video games industry. It's no longer just within the US and Japan and maybe Europe. So Sony helped Yang Bin establish Ulti-Zero Games as a fully fledged development team for the project. So what started as a solo project, quickly after being noticed by Sony, they gave him a whole team to work on this. By November 2022, Sony took over publishing duties for Lost Soul Aside, and it is set for release sometime in 2025. So, just a description of the game so far. From Shanghai-based studio Ultra Zero Games comes Lost Soul Aside, an original and super stylish action-adventure RPG. When invading dimensional beings known as Void Racks take the soul of his beloved sister, Kazur must embark on a dangerous journey to face this terrifying new threat, save his sibling, and liberate humanity. So, sounds pretty standard. Also has a bit of near replicate in there with the whole sister saving thing, right? Prepare for thrilling and dynamic combat utilizing Kazur's swordsmanship. Kazur, I don't know. To create devastating combos and parry incoming attacks from relentless enemies. Build experience to evolve Kazur's skills and discover additional melee weapons that can be switched between instantly to develop increasingly spectacular chains of strikes. Your enemies will show no mercy, neither must you. And this was very refreshing to see, because just looking at the game, it really feels it's just a character action game. And I feel like we've been getting more and more games that have been adapting Souls-like sensibilities for so many years now, that it's refreshing to see that we're getting more and more straight-up character action games instead of Souls-like, so to speak. And, character action games like Final Fantasy 16 was a character action game. Then, Devil May Cry, of course, most famously. Bayonetta, right? These are games that have fallen to the wayside in favor of Souls-like mechanics, Souls-like difficulty, and Souls-like type of gameplay, which has you staring at an enemy for 10 to 15 seconds before they attack, and you dodge, and then you attack back, and then you dodge back away, and then wait for it to attack again. The thing about these character action games is that they're more relentless in terms of you attacking the enemy whenever you can, and sometimes, depending on the enemy, you can overwhelm them that they aren't able to fight back. Whereas for Souls games, it's quite different. It's more methodical and more slow, so to speak. Especially if you're not a pro, right? If you're not some sort of pro who dedicated his life to just Souls games, then that's a typical playstyle of a Soul game where when you encounter a new enemy, you kind of wait and study its attack pattern first before doing 2 strikes, and that's it. So, I'm super excited for this. Lost Soul Aside, I've been excited for this for a long time already, and I'm glad that after 10 years or more, it's finally coming out, and hopefully it's good. The only thing I find weird about it is that I do like the main protagonist design, and it's definitely easily, very literally inspired by Noctis from Final Fantasy 15. Maybe a little bit grown up, maybe a little bit taller and stuff like that. However, I am not liking the designs of the supporting cast so far, especially, even that of the sister and stuff like that. I feel like they're all... I feel like it's a bit complicated. I feel like the designs are complicated and they don't fit well with each other. And hopefully the game itself is good. And I feel like for games like this, maybe they focused more on the gameplay and the graphics and the cinematics. I feel like there's no chance that the story for this is good. It's gonna be a decent story, a passable story maybe, just to provide a little framework for all the stuff that you're doing. But this strikes me as one of those games where it's all just about they've spent the past 10 years optimizing the gameplay and the graphics instead of the story. So, however, that's fine. That's fine. You can do that. But that's my only thing that I probably will not like about this. But we don't know yet. It's still not in our hands. We'll never know. And I think that's why Nier Automata popped off all those years ago. Because the gameplay had the Platinum Games pedigree behind it. So even if the gameplay isn't like the best, it's still up there. It's still a very competent character action game in terms of gameplay. But the thing that really carried it was a story. And that's why, even though Stellar Blade is really good, if only it had a better story, I feel like it could have been the next Nier Automata if the story was as good as Nier Automata. But it wasn't, because I feel like they also focused on more of gameplay and stuff like that. However, in this vein, I feel like because of that, Liza P is doing much better because of its deep lore. It's very cool story tied with a good aesthetic and good gameplay. So, yeah. So in these games, they better not start like forgetting story, because I think that's very important. So that's Lost Soul aside. You need to I apologize. You need to forgive me for some pauses I have here and there. My nose is actually very runny at the moment. It's not runny, it's more clogged or something like that because of the cold. It's really cold here in Japan, and I have to constantly like calibrate myself and swallow just to open up my nose a little bit. And I've been inhaling my Vicks inhaler the whole time just to open it up. Yeah, I've been struggling here. It's really cold here. Like there's a cold wave going on, and it's been hell on earth. But I'm enjoying it because it's very rare for me to get cold like this. Because I'm in the Philippines. There's no cold place there. Even if people argue, no, Baguio is really cold. Baguio, which is the highest part in the Philippines that you can live in. I mean, at least like a city, the highest city that you can live in, where it's colder than the rest of the places, but it's still pretty warm. Not like this. It's not this cold. Not like in Japan. So, cool. The next few games that they announced were Dave the Diver and Like a Dragon crossover. Pretty cool. Should be interesting. And then next up was WWE 2K25. They revealed this island type of open world thing, which I don't really feel. Because it just adds another layer of... I didn't really like this also when they included it in NBA. It just added a little layer of, you have to run around and buy stuff from shops and stuff like that. Whereas for a WWE, what I really care about are the storylines, between characters, before, during, and after the matches, and in between matches. They could... One of my best memories was playing on the PlayStation 2 and playing these games, and I was so engaged because of these little stories and cutscenes they had in between the battles. And I think just having a whole island where you just go around and walk around and waste time buying stuff, it's not really my thing. I'd rather keep it slim, like just keep the story and the cutscenes in it. I don't think I really need to run around and buy some clothes or whatever. Then Borderlands 4 was announced. Not really super interested in that. Not really announced, but they showed more of it. Split Fiction, which is the co-op game that everybody and their mothers are going to be streaming when it comes out. Pretty cool. Then Directive 8020, which is from the Man of Medan developers, which before I cared more about when they just made Until Dawn. I really liked the team that made these games. But after playing all the Man of Medan games, I mean the Dark Pictures anthology games, I'm like, I think they lost the secret sauce that they had for Until Dawn. And they've just been trying to recapture that sauce to no avail. And Directive 8020, while it looks good, I'm still cautious about it. I don't think they have the sauce anymore. So we'll just have to see. So that's Directive 8020. It's more of the sci-fi space horror, kind of like Alien. It's also not an super original idea. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Then the next game they announced was Five Nights at Freddy's Secret of the Mimic. And interestingly, this is the most viewed trailer from the State of Play. Those FNAF addicts are hungry for a new game. Go for them. The next one was The Midnight Walk. Now this is an interesting one because this is the claymation / stop motion one. Very Tim Burton-esque, and it has the whimsical horror fantasy kind of aesthetic, which is really cool to me. And the description here is, in this reverent dark fantasy adventure built in clay, from the minds behind Lost in Random and Faye Become the Burnt One, befriend a lost lantern creature named Potboy, and use his flame to light your way through a conflicting world of wonder and horror. Survive and outsmart the many monsters eager to devour your little friend's flame as you experience 5 tales of fire and darkness. I didn't realize it's 5 tales of fire and darkness. Huh, interesting. So it's gonna be like 5 little stories of Potboy on his midnight walk. That's interesting. I don't really know much about it. I would like to play this in PSVR 2, though. I would like to try this in VR, but we'll see. We'll see, because the game looks really good, and it's a stylized art style, so it'll be really nice in VR for sure. Because the thing about in VR, the thing that I hate about VR is when people are trying to make things photorealistic. It's just not gonna work. It's just not gonna register that way when you're in VR. If you have like photorealistic graphics, because you can't even render that high with VR, because you're like duplicating the screen. You need two renders of the same thing, so you can't really do photorealistic and stuff like that. It's just gonna be weird. So that's cool. Next game, also a game I'm interested in, pretty fun. Darwin's Paradox by Konami. Interesting, because I believe this might be Konami's second game after its return to gaming. So around like 2015, I think the Konami CEO announced that Konami would stop making console games and instead focus on the mobile gaming platform, and also like all their pachinko machines and stuff like that. They announced that they won't be completely leaving the gaming space, but they won't be going as hard on it. And then recently, with the announcement of Metal Gear Solid Delta, it seems that they're coming back to the gaming space. And now they have a new game called Darwin's Paradox, which is this funny little octopus game that looks good, actually. It looks really good. But here's a little description. Embark on a grand adventure worthy of a true animated movie, with Darwin, an octopus as charming as he is clever, ripped from the ocean and trapped in a massive and mysterious industrial complex. With his extraordinary intelligence and incredible abilities, swimming, camouflage, and many other fascinating skills help him overcome the most formidable traps and dangers in this captivating platformer, adventure, and puzzle game. In the peaceful vastness of the ocean, Darwin, a young octopus, explores the deep sea until a strange beam of light pierces the abyss and pulls him towards the surface. Thrust out of his aquatic world, he wakes up disoriented in the middle of a gigantic junkyard backed by a foreboding factory. But something is wrong. Between the threatening machines, strange holding tanks, and the mysterious and dangerous creatures and characters that inhabit the place, Darwin realizes he is in danger. To return to the ocean, Darwin will have to outsmart, evolve, and reveal to the players through his journey the mysteries of conspiracy that goes beyond anything one could have imagined, and which could very well seal the fate of humanity. Now that's funny. It's funny how the story or the synopsis is so like intense. Seal the fate of humanity? What does Darwin have to do with humanity anyway? He's an octopus, but we'll have to see. And one of the things about Konami is that they've been making money on video games, just quietly. Yeah, and now they're going to make more with these two games. So, Delta and this game, Darwin's Paradox. So that's cool. Excited to see that. Watch the trailer. It looks really good. I'm not even kidding. Octopuses have been proving to be a good subject for video games. So we got this Darwin's Paradox, and the previous one is not. It's not their previous one, but the previous Octopus game that I played was Octodad, which was really good as well. So octopuses are making a comeback, right? Next game they showed, Warriors Abyss. It's a new title, spin-off title in the Musou type of games, the Dynasty Warriors types of games. But this more has a top-down perspective to it, and it's a roguelite, and it's not gacha. And I'm not really interested in this. Not really. But to those who do like it, it looks very much like a mobile game to me. I don't know if it is, but should be fun. And I think they also announced, when they announced this at the State of Play, they also announced that it's going to be available on that day as well. So that's cool of them. That's cool. So next up is Onimusha 2 Samurai's Destiny Remaster, which was initially released in 2002 and is now finally getting a remaster for modern consoles. But that's cool and all. Onimusha is this kind of samurai horror type game back in the PlayStation 2 era, which is really nice. But more importantly, they showed more of Onimusha Way of the Sword, which is the newest entry in the Onimusha franchise. So, fight through bloodstained battlefields of intense swordplay action. Explore the historic Japanese capital of Edo-era Kyoto, twisted by malevolent clouds of malice. With every stage cloaked in memory, danger, and intrigue, battle against monstrosities from the underworld known as Genma in a tale of dark fantasy. Follow the tale of a samurai who wields the Oni Gauntlet, a mystical artifact that grants its bearer the power to slay Genma. Through gritty, blood-soaked brawls, he searches for his reason to fight. What fate awaits at the end of his path? Now, this was very interesting to see, mostly because of the protagonist. Now, if you watch the trailer, the protagonist has that chuny / cowardly / comedic type of aura to him. And it's interesting that they're going in that direction when Onimusha has a very heavy horror type of ambiance to it. So that's going to be very interesting to see. He reminds me of Gintoki from Gintama as a character. So that's going to be interesting to see. They also showed some gameplay, and thank God the gameplay isn't a Souls-like. Thank God. In fact, it looks pretty unique. It looks more of... The gameplay looks more of stuff you'd see from Arkham, from the Arkham series, rather than a Souls-like or a typical character action game. So I'm excited to see that. And they also have... Onimusha also has this thing about absorbing souls, absorbing orbs, and also they also showed a mechanic where you kind of prop up tables, I don't know, as a shield maybe, between you and the enemy, because they're going to be coming from different directions, so maybe you need that to kind of control the crowd, do some crowd control, put up tables behind you while you attack the enemies in front of you. It looks really good. So I'm excited for this. Can't wait. Onimusha is back. Then next up we got Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater Delta, which is coming out on August 28th. It was confirmed in the trailer. And, it's Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater, which is, is already good. I was very skeptical about this game when it was first announced. A Kojima-less Metal Gear Solid. But the more I see of it, the more good it looks. And it looks like they really just... It's kind of like with MMDs, right? You get the motion of something and then you apply it to a different model. It kind of just feels like that, where they took the motion data from the original game and just applied it to a higher resolution model, higher detail model, and just applied all of that. Even the camera movements and everything, they seem to be all the same. And if they do that, that should be good. However, there is also something to be said about taking artistic liberties for something like this to make it better or to make a different version of it, different flavor it. But there's also something we've said about preserving the experience as it is, just with a new coat of paint. So that's a thing. And also, it was also revealed it's going to have the Ape Escape DLC. That's interesting. We're going to be able to see the apes in glorious 4K soon. Cool. Next up, they showed was Hell Is Us. They showed Hell Is Us long ago, but they had a very comedic statement about player plattering, which is kind of funny. Because it's this whole thing. They said, like, so there's this concept of silver platter, like things being served to you on a silver platter, right? Meaning you don't need to do anything. The life will just serve you these opportunities and you can become successful or whatever. So that's silver, and they relate to it as silver plattering. Funny. But for this game, they call it player plattering, where it's the player's job to earn, like, the rewards that you'll get from this game. The game is not going to give you hints. It's not even going to give you a map. It's not even going to give you an objective. You just need to figure it out on your own, and that's their concept of player plattering. So, Hell Is Us is a third-person action-adventure game that combines intense melee combat with a thrill of exploration. Explore a semi-open world to find answers to your questions and face mysterious creatures all along your journey. As well as a civil war dividing the country, the region is suffering from mysterious calamity, which has given rise to supernatural creatures that no modern weapon can defeat. Your drone and sword from a different age are your faithful allies as you cut a path through lands infested with terrifying chimeras and try to unravel the mystery of their appearance. No map, no compass, no quest markers. Following your instincts is part of the adventure. Enjoy a unique experience that uses innovative writing and level design to let you make your own decisions and follow your instincts as you explore. Your discoveries are yours alone. So this is, by default, just very interesting to me, because what do you mean, no map, no compass, and no quest markers? So what has to happen is that you need to have impeccable level design to point us in the correct directions, at least for the main story stuff, whereas the side stuff, we'll just have to go out of their way to check it out. So this is interesting. Also, it looks very much like Death Stranding in a way. So I'm excited for this. And this has potential. But the level design needs to be good to actually show you in a subtle way where to go next. Because otherwise, it's still a video game. You can't just be like, oh yeah, there's also a chance you'll never, ever progress, by the way. You can't do that. It's still a video game. You need to give gamers some satisfaction because they paid for the game and stuff like that. So that'll be interesting. It'll be nice to see Hell Is Us in the future. Next one of the biggest ones in the state of play, Lies of P Overture, which is a prequel, which is the DLC expansion to Lies of P, which is also apparently a sequel. Squeakquel? The prequel to the original game. Cross the Bounds of Time. Lies of P Overture is a dramatic prequel to the acclaimed Souls-like action RPG Lies of P. It transports you to the city of Krat in its final days of haunting late 19th century Belle Epoque beauty. Yeah. On the brink of the puppet frenzy massacre, you follow a legendary stalker, a mysterious guide through untold stories and chilling secrets. As Geppetto's deadly puppet, you'll journey through Krat and its surroundings, uncover hidden backstories, and face epic battles that shape the past and future of Lies of P. As Geppetto's puppet, you encounter a mysterious artifact that transports you back to Krat in its final days of grandeur. In the shadow of an impending tragedy... One second. Your mission is to explore the past and uncover its dark secrets. Haunted by surprises, loss, and vengeance. The choices you make ripple through... Oh, God. The choices you make ripple through the past and present in the world of Lies of P, revealing hidden truths and leaving lasting consequences. Embark on an unforgettable journey where the symphony of steel clashes with the haunting melody of the unknown. Dare to unravel the mysteries of the past, for in the heart of darkness lies the key to unlocking the secrets of a timeless tale reborn. It sounds really cool. This game really caught my attention. I mean, the last Lies of P was really good. Amongst Souls-likes, I feel like it's my most favorite Souls-like. It's just that good. The gameplay system in that game are also really nice, and the fact that you can customize your own weapon makes it just a different experience altogether compared to other Souls-like. And not just customizing, like get +1 to this, +2 to that. No, you can choose between the blade and a handle. You can mix and match blades and handles for different effects. And depending on what you do with your blades and handles, you get different animations too. For the weapon, different speeds. For the weapon, different speeds of both the attack and also the defense. Like your blocking will have a different speed as well. But yeah, this seems to be really, really cool. I like the musical angle to it because Lies of P had really nice music. So it makes sense that they're going the music kind of way for this one. So that's very exciting. Can't wait to play this for sure. Also, they just released a story trailer like yesterday. And oh boy, the music really is so good. And it seems like they're going to make us cry. They're definitely going to try and make us cry with that. So, Lies of P Overture. Can't wait. Next game that was shown was Dreams of Another. I was surprised about this because apparently when I watched this, it didn't really register to me. But apparently the guy who made this is named Bion. And he is the director of the Pixel Junk games. Pixel Junk games were super popular in the PS3 era. And I didn't know they were still a thing. And I didn't know they were going to make something like this. So, Bion presents his latest artistic endeavor in the form of this life-affirming game set in an ephemeral dream world. Dreams of Another is a third-person exploration action game built around the philosophical theme, no creation without destruction. Rather than destroying objects by shooting, as in traditional shooting games, here, your shots materialize and create the world. This unconventional mechanic offers a gameplay experience that challenges the norms of the genre and invites players into a whole new dimension. Now, I saw this game, and it didn't really look anything like anything to me. I guess the idea is pretty cool, pretty unique, where you have... What was happening was they had a gun and they were shooting their gun, but instead of, the typical things a gun does, they were creating new, scenes and objects while shooting the gun. Which is weird, right? Weird and kooky. I like it. So, we'll see. We'll just have to see. I'm not super interested in it, but I became more interested in it when I saw that it was from the director of the Pixel Junk games, which are just some of the cool games, cool indie games-ish on the PlayStation 3. Next game that they reveal is Days Gone Remastered. They're finally showing the remaster of Days Gone, which has been rumored for a long time. But it's funny because Days Gone looks really good. And this remaster looks no different. It just looks the same to me. But yes, there is a thing to be said that they're selling this because they want to fund their big AAA new projects. So this is going to happen. Will I buy the remastered version? I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't have the original game. Do I? Oh, I think I do have the original game. I just haven't played it. So I might just get the $10 upgrade or something like that for it. So we'll see. Next one is a collab between Stellar Blade and Goddess of Victory, Nikke, which is a match made in heaven, right? The most a collab has ever been. So it's perfect for that. And it's nice to see the Nikke outfits in full 4K glory in this one. It's going to look really good. So Nikke fans and Stellar Blade fans are eating with their collabs. Just recently we got the Nier collab, and now we got the Nikke collab. It's pretty cool. Then next up is Blueprints. Not super interested in it. It's a puzzle game. Next game was Abiotic Factor, which is already on Steam, but I guess it's getting a console release. Cool. But then this next game, which I think might be the biggest game shown in this state of play, Tides of Annihilation. This was a surprise because I really did not know what it was. It was showing like this like this facsimile of London, but then the characters were in fantasy fits that remind me of Final Fantasy 16. And then the gameplay, and I was like, this is gonna be Bloodborne gameplay, right? There's gonna be typical Souls like again. It's gonna be that type of game. But then they show the gameplay. Nope, it's a character action game, which I'm so happy about. And the way the character action game is reminds me so much of Final Fantasy 16 because they're summoning the Knights of the Round Table to their side. But let's read some descriptions of it. London lies in ruin, torn apart by an abrupt invasion from another realm. As Gwendolyn, the city's last surviving inhabitant, you'll face off against otherworldly foes as she navigates a world where reality and fantasy intertwine, unraveling the mysteries behind binding the shattered existence. A once vibrant London has been torn asunder into an eerie reflection of itself, its buildings distorted, life forms transformed, and its history shrouded in shadow. Venture into this devastated world to uncover hidden truths and find a way to save your family, city, and the very fabric of your reality itself. Experience a unique nightly combat system that allows you to command a band of over 10 legendary knights. Inspired by Arthurian lore, each knight brings unique skills and abilities to your team. Combine their powers to craft your own battle strategies, unleashing awe-inspiring cooperative attacks. Forge a path to victory with their personalized order of knights. So that's very cool. The whole concept of it is so cool. Like you're using the Knights of the Round Table as summons to help you in battle, and they all have their own different types of attacks and different effects. This was a big surprise. Even then they showed like extended gameplay like the day after, like 11 minutes of gameplay, which looked really good. They also showed off an enemy, and the designs are really nice as well. And then I was surprised. I think this is a Chinese developer. Again? What are they smoking there? They're making like insanely good-looking AAA games for their very first game. So, Tides of Annihilation. This is definitely on my radar as with a lot of people. And can't wait to see this in action, like finally, like in our hands, to see what's up. And once again, my hope is the story is good. That's my hope. We'll see. We'll just have to see. Next up is Metal Eden. Metal Eden is an adrenaline rush sci-fi FPS, and advanced hyper unit Asuka is sent on a suicide mission to rescue the citizens' cores from the vast monolithic city of Mobius. Once a hopeful new home for humanity, now turned into a deadly trap. Blast your way through the internal defense core in cybernetic warfare, confront the engineers, and uncover the mysteries of the project. This didn't really look like anything to me. It just looked like, a typical like sci-fi shooter. In fact, when I was watching this, I was like, is this Marathon? I think because it had a little boxy gun that it looked like Marathon, but it's not. So, not really super interested, but should be cool. I don't know. Not really. Then the next game that they showed is Mind's Eye. And this was very interesting because there was a guy that showed up on the screen and he was talking about Mind's Eye. I was like, who is this? Who is this man? Tell me who this man is. And so I did a little bit of research, and apparently the guy that was talking during the segment is named Leslie Benzies. And Leslie Benzies was once, I think, a director for Rockstar, developers of GTA, right? And there's actually a very tumultuous story behind this game being made, because Benzies, way back when, in 2014, took a sabbatical leave from Rockstar. So he had this thing, he just took a sabbatical, and that's it. Then in January 2016, it was announced that he had left the company. right? But Benzies later claimed that he was persuaded to take the sabbatical, during which his son and several of his friends were fired from the company and his email access was suspended when he attempted to return to work. He was ordered to leave by the office manager and says that the company made scurrilous allegations about his actions at work. So on April 2016, Benzies started legal action against Rockstar Games and its parent Take-Two Interactive, claiming $150 million in unpaid royalties. So that's a weird, tumultuous story behind this guy. It's very reminiscent of what I watch from Mad Men. Like, I watch Mad Men, and there was a whole segment there where they force, the main character to take like a sabbatical leave, but this basically means they were kind of soft firing him in a way. So that's interesting. But the game itself, play as Jacob Diaz, a former soldier with a mysterious neural implant who is suffering from memory loss and flashbacks. Set out on a series of dangerous covert missions to unlock the secrets of your past in a world filled with the persistent threat of artificial intelligence, high-tech experimentation, corporate espionage, political corruption, and an unchecked military. Mind's Eye is an immersive experience with a mind-bending, complex narrative, rich environments, groundbreaking combat, future tech, and high-speed chases. Now this... I don't know what to feel about this game when I saw it. It feels like a relic of the past, honestly. It's literally set in a city. A guy who seems to be military with some guns and some pew-pews. And the thing that really stuck to me here was it has a cover system. So it was a cover shooter. And I feel like it's been so long since we last saw a cover shooter. But it was a cover shooter. And it had this very, militaristic type of story. So by default, I'm not super interested in that. But I'm actually more interested in the story of this guy, like Leslie Benzies. And that I wonder what type of game he made outside of Rockstar. That's more interesting to me. But we'll just keep a lookout on this. I'm not too hot for it, but I might probably play it depending on the reviews, but we'll see. We'll see. And lastly, the final game of the show is Housemarque's new game. So Housemarque, popular for the creation of Returnal, right? Returnal and Resogun, amongst other things, are finally making a new game, Saros. And Saros is a cool title because Saros is actually a period of about 18 years between repetitions of solar and lunar eclipses. And just based on the trailer and the visuals, looks like it's going to deal with that, solar and lunar eclipses. So that's going to be cool to see. But here's a little description. Saros is the ultimate evolution of the Housemarque gameplay first experience. After Returnal, we knew we had created something special and award-winning, but we also knew we wanted Returnal to stand on its own. With this in mind, we decided to create a new IP which involves our deep third-person action and mysterious storytelling. Saros is an action game with a haunting story of a lost off-world colony on Carcosa under an ominous eclipse. You play as Arjun Devraj, a powerful solitary enforcer who will stop at nothing to find who is looking for. Our goal is to create an emotional and powerful character study that explores the cost it takes to create a new future. Cool. Arjun is performed by Rahul Kohli from Midnight Mass to Follow the House of Usher. Rahul is truly bringing Arjun to life in a stunning performance. He has been a brilliant collaborator to tell our story and champion for the game. He's also not alone in Carcosa, and we will reveal more of our fantastic ensemble NPC cast and story information ahead. A key gameplay distinction between Saros and Returnal is permanent resources and progression, making every death valuable. After every death, you will face a changed world, but in Saros, you will be able to choose and permanently upgrade your loadout from an evolving set of weapons and suit parts to come back stronger, to overcome the challenges you face on Carcosa. So this sounds heckin' badass. Returnal was already badass, but this seems to up it up a notch, just increase it up a notch by a lot. and just look at the level, like the setting. Look at the enemies facing. Oh my god, that looks so good. And it's so nice to see how far Housemarque has come, because Housemarque really has mostly been like specializing in, you know, smaller games, gameplay heavy, smaller games, right? And Sony took a chance on them after cultivating them for so long, and they were able to make Returnal, which I do plan on playing soon. When it first released, I was really interested in playing it. It's just I wasn't in the headspace for it yet, like, because I know it's supposed to be hard as nails. But this one, I will try to be there on day one because it looks really good. And also, I'm a big fan of Housemarque. Love Resogun. So yeah, Saros was the game of the state of play, and a lot of people were disappointed in this. And I can see why, right? Because Housemarque isn't exactly a household name for gamers, so to speak. Household names for gamers in terms of PlayStation studios is Naughty Dog, the Gran Turismo studio probably, and Insomniac because of Spider-Man, but the rest, not really. I mean, Sucker Punch is one of the greats out there, but they made Ghost of Tsushima, and before that, Infamous, but still, it's not like they're as big as Naughty Dog, so to speak, in terms of brand recognition. And Housemarque really isn't. Housemarque is one of the smaller ones that are still trying to make a name for themselves. But it's cool to see that they went from these small gameplay first pixel, not really pixel, but first gameplay first, like small games, into now making full-fledged AAA roguelites that look badass. So yeah, Saros. So that's the state of play. A lot of people were disappointed in the final reveal if they didn't really know who Housemarque was. But for the rest of us who do know, this is very exciting. So, and that was state of play. And honestly, I really enjoyed that state of play. It's really good. It's one of the better ones. Is it the best? Probably not. But it had a lot of things I really liked. But it also had a lot of things I wanted, but are not here. Like, where is my Final Fantasy IX remake, bro? Just show it. Just show it. So yeah, we finished the episode. It's even under weird circumstances. Although this episode is kind of short, it's still 2 hours, 50 minutes-ish, which is still pretty beefy. You can still listen to this on the commute home or something like that. But yeah, it was fun. It was fun talking about all of this, especially State of Play and all the news. There wasn't really too much news aside from the State of Play stuff. And there's actually an interview going around of an interview with Shuhei Yoshida, which is the previous, like, one of the big guys at PlayStation. He was in charge of the indies. He was first in charge of first party, then became in charge of indies. And he just recently, like, resigned from PlayStation and is now entertaining interviews from various, like, podcasts and media outlets. And he's been spilling the beans on a lot of PlayStation stuff. However, I don't feel good about talking about it because it's paywalled. It's paywalled behind a Patreon, something like that. So I don't really want to talk about it until they release it, like, in public. Because, you know, just out of respect to the paywall, right? But yeah. But I think that's it for me. There really isn't anything else to talk about. I'll be braving the Japan weather now to get some breakfast. Or maybe I'll have something delivered. I don't know. I don't know what I feel at the moment. But I'm definitely hungry. So, but that is it for me. And that is Triangle to Win. And I'll see you again in 2 weeks. Hopefully something cool happens. Goodbye.